All right. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Osama, one of the co-hosts for Why I Did a Podcast. And today we have Fed from Gummy Search and the Hive Index. But I wanted to introduce myself. I'll introduce Fed. So if you want to say a little bit about yourself, Fed, go ahead.
Hey guys, first of all, Osama, thank you very much for having me on the pod. My name's Fed, and I build community-focused products. The Hive Index is a directory of online communities where people can find communities for their interests, and Gummy Search is a community research tool based off of Reddit that helps startup founders, marketers, and market researchers figure out what people are talking about in online communities on Reddit to come up with business ideas, validate them, come up with content ideas, all of that sort of stuff.
It's a really good software. I've used it. So this is actually how I met Fed. I was actually trying to use Gummy Search, and I reached out to him. I'm like, hey, I'm reusing this, and I had some questions, and he was really good answering those questions. But honestly, it's actually a tool to get leads. It's a tool that I was able to get leads from and directly get some return on investment. So I can vouch for it. I can put my name behind it. It's a good tool. But let's go back to the Hive Index. How did that start?
So why do you want it?
It's good goddamn business. And if I don't buy it, someone else will, and that will be very, very bad for my business. When it comes to business, my judgment is never clouded.
Yeah, so the Hive Index, it was actually a bit of a warm-up project for me. There was a time 2 years ago when I left my full-time job. I was working in tech at a company in New York City, and I knew that I wanted to bootstrap my own products. And I got really inspired when I read Peter Level's blog, 12 Startups in 12 Months. Not sure if you read it, but he basically says, I'm going to build a startup every single month and I'm going to launch it because I want to get really good at launching things. And by the time he gets to the 6th or 7th one, he's so good at this. He makes Nomad list. It's a really big success. He also launched Remote OK. And, just as a solo founder, his products bring in like couple $1 million a year, and he has no employees. He's a nomad, and he lives a pretty interesting life. And anyways, I got really inspired by this concept of let's just go and ship. And I knew that I was probably going to build a bigger product than a directory site, but the Hive Index I thought was a really good kind of example to work off of. So I came up with the idea. I realized that there wasn't really a good directory of online communities out there, and I found the data, turned it into a website. It took me like 2 weeks, and then I launched it, and a lot of people really liked it. So that was kind of a really good first experience with just creating something and showing it to the world.
How did you go about getting your first customer?
So the Hive Index, it's like a sponsorship revenue model, and so for a while, I wasn't actually monetizing. I didn't even have any intention of monetizing it. I was focusing on making useful resources for people that were finding community, and I wasn't asking for any money for that. But I started getting all these communities that listed on the site, and I built up a bit of a relationship with a lot of the community managers and owners. And eventually, people started asking me, like, I didn't even ask them to pay me money. They started asking me, they said, hey, like, what can I do to get more eyes? Can I pay you to promote my community? And then I started, allowing these sponsored listings to get more visibility on the site. And in the process, I've met a lot of really, really amazing community founders, and it's opened up a lot of doors for me. So even though the site, doesn't make as much money as my SaaS product, it's something that I really enjoy just like having and maintaining and adding to it from time to time.
You realize like later on, like, oh, I can actually make money from this. Interesting.
What's kind of interesting. So one of the things I realized with running a directory site, which is like a content business, and with running a SaaS, when you're running a SaaS, I feel like so many things need to go right for your customer to pay you. You need to acquire them. They need to get activated. They need to convert to a paying customer. They need to not churn. And so it's just like this one big funnel. Whereas with a content site like the Hive Index, there's actually like 5 different ways of monetizing it. There's the sponsored listings. You could have You can serve up display ads. You can have, affiliate links for communities. So in that way, it's an interesting, model, because you can just experiment with different monetization frameworks. You can go in a certain direction and then change your mind if you want. No one's really going to get mad at you, because most of the time people are reading the content and, they interact with your sites, and then, they go on their separate ways. Unlike like a SaaS user, which you want to just maintain, have them going in every single day.
Right. Like the whole nurturing process is not the same when you've got a community.
Yeah.
Do you, so what made you even bootstrap it? Like, to start with, like, what was the incentive? Even go backwards, you're working, what were you doing, and how did you go about, like, I want to bootstrap? Was it some form of partnership you've had that wasn't doing great? You're like, look, I want to do it myself. Or was it the fact that you wanted to be free and have that? Because we'll talk a bit about your nomad lifestyle before that, like the previously. But yeah, what was it for you? Like, was it initially the fact that you wanted to have the freedom, or was it you worked at somewhere that wasn't like the right place for your personality? Because I've done that. I'll tell you a little about myself, but I want to hear more about your background with it.
Yeah, it's a little bit of both, for sure. But on the second point, having the experience of working in a venture-backed startup, I did that before I was bootstrapping my own products. I worked at a tech startup for 6 years, and I loved it. I joined as the fourth employee. The company grew to be 150 people. We had international offices. We had all of these, big clients, and I really, really learned a lot in that experience, and I'm really grateful for it. But at the same time, I did feel like with the venture-backed route, a lot of time there's this pressure from investors to always grow, to just increase your headcount, to like really go and I saw some of the painful aspects of that and how that shook out. So I think that I'm not, turning away from going the venture-backed route at some point, but I did want to see what it's like to bootstrap a company and build it in a calm way, build it on my own terms, do it with a set of principles that I feel are, best for me and the lifestyle that I want. And so far I've been loving it. And I do find that it's really like sustainable when it comes to a match to my personality as well.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, I've never been down that venture capital route, but I did talk to a lot of people that have. It's great for the right business model, but there is a pressure to grow, and you're right. Having that headroom where you're like, you know what, I actually want to grow it to the point where I feel it's about right, and maybe then I can ride the faster horse. But there's a point that you want to learn how to ride the pony and get everything right about that horse before you make it run. And I think that's how probably most startups start.
And I also find it's interesting when you're bootstrapping, you're starting out, you're doing things, most likely solo. You're wearing all the different jobs and all the different hats, doing all the different jobs. And I find that it's a great opportunity for personal growth. At least for myself, I come from an engineering background, and now, I used to be a software engineer. Now I'm more of a marketer. So it's been interesting to just like learn new skills and to figure it out, and having that confidence of whatever challenge is ahead of me, I'm going to go ahead and overcome it. I think that's a good thing to have under your belt.
100%. It's very liberating to get that. What is it like to operate with no staff, though? Because that's like the hardest part. Like from my perspective, I've found it very tricky to, everybody has certain strengths and weaknesses. And when you have a company that you're the founder of, it's very tricky to do everything, right? Like you kind of are expected to know a bit of front end, a bit of back end, a bit of marketing, a bit of sales, a bit of my name is out there, I'm putting my face in front of it. Like, what is it like to not have staff? And if you were to hire one person, what would the first person be doing?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that for Gummy Search specifically. But, to clarify, even though I don't have, staff members on the team, I wouldn't say that I'm doing things alone. So first of all, there's a wonderful community of bootstrapped SaaS entrepreneurs that are supporting each other, that are teaching each other. If I have a question, I know that there's hundreds, maybe thousands of people that I can ask, and they will provide me with their experiences, and I will learn from them. And that is so, so powerful. And especially because building a startup can be quite a lonely experience, and so it's nice to do it with community. So one, I never feel alone. Two, I do work with other people for certain projects. For the Hive Index, actually, I got a chance to work with my little sister, who I hired for a while to help me curate some communities. We launched I worked with her for a couple months. We launched the site on Product Hunt. We did the redesign. So I think that there's a difference between having people that you pay that are on your staff who you're responsible for their livelihood. That's a lot of pressure. And there's a difference between that and, choosing to work with someone and doing it for a period of time or doing it forever under some sort of agreement that's not just a monetary one. Those avenues are still open when you're bootstrapping.
Good answer. So you have hired someone technically for a short amount of time?
I've hired, so I hired my sister for a while. I've hired, freelancers on Upwork when I need certain things done. I've worked with designers, and I think that's a kind of way of working that I'm pretty comfortable with. Because most of the time when I need help on something, it's not a persistent thing that I need someone working full time on forever as long as I'm operating the company. It's more often there's a skill that I'm missing, and who can I find that can do it in a much shorter amount of time, that is much better at it than I am, and I can learn from them so that I can figure out how to, best handle those situations in the future.
That's just a good way to go about it. It's just like we're kind of monetizing the strengths, and if you need help, you can always ask for it. I mean, I've certainly asked you a million times about things, and you've been very good at responding.
I love, that's one of the things that SaaS founders often kind of like outsource or they hire for, the customer support. I love the customer support, and it's not overwhelming right now. I can imagine how it can get overwhelming at a certain stage, but I'm not there yet. And so maybe at some point I will hire someone to do some of the product development. Maybe I'll hire someone to help me with marketing. Maybe I'll hire someone with customer support. But right now, at the scale that I'm operating at, it's not unmanageable, and it's still fun. So as long as it still stays fun, that's the point for me. I'm looking to make a business. I'm looking to enjoy myself and have a good day to day. And when that changes, I'll know that it's time to make a change.
Awesome. What about AI? Would you hire an AI assistant?
I'm building my own AI assistant, man.
I know. That's why. Tell us about it. That's why I was trying to lead into it.
Yeah, that's good. So, the Gummy Search, it's a customer research tool for Reddit. And, you mentioned that you use it to find leads. That is one of the use cases. The other use cases are people looking at Reddit for inspiration for business ideas, looking to use information they find from Reddit to do competitive intelligence, to validate their solutions, to come up with content ideas to write. And really, if you take all of those use cases and figure out what's the thing that is at the center, what's the commonality, it's that people want to read real stories, real words from humans. They want to know that they can go to a certain place and get real opinions and find just the information they need, and maybe even be able to interact with them, ask them questions, and it's all about finding the right information. And so at its core, Gummy Search is a search engine for Reddit. Reddit, when you go to reddit.com, it's more that UI is more for scrolling, discovering things. Startup founders, marketers, they need a search tool. They have something they're looking for, they want to go and find it. So Gummy Search provides that and does so in a way where people can find what they want really, really quickly. And now the next step, and this is something that I'm really excited about, you saw me launch it last week, is to be able to very quickly find and summarize a lot of information from Reddit. So what this looks like is you can point Gummy Search at a set of communities, and you can find the common themes in the conversations happening there. Or you can point it towards certain kinds of conversations, like pain points or people asking for solutions, and you could find the patterns in the things that people are asking for. In this way, you can turn what would be hours of reading time to really understand what people are talking about into, seconds, minutes, and a really, really neatly organized report of some of the most common topics you might be interested in. So for that, I do use some interesting new AI technology, and I've been having a lot of fun with implementing it. I know that, there's a lot of buzz about AI these days. Some people love it. Some people hate it.
I haven't heard about AI.
I mean, it seems like it's changing so quickly and expanding, and it's really interesting to see. But I think that one of the kind of most common use cases that I've seen is generating text, and I think that is interesting. But one of the use cases that I am excited to dive into myself, that I think is less commonly seen out in the wild, is drawing meaning from text and reading, whole libraries on behalf of someone and figuring out exactly the answer they want and maybe citing some sources with that answer. That's the direction that I'm excited to see AI go in.
I'm going to make a small pitch for the product. Let's go. So the main thing that I would think that you're using that would be valuable, in my opinion, is when you use a ChatGPT or something more like in the realm of Bing or even like the AI writers, they're actually using data that's a bit old. They're using data that's not recently like refreshed. And the problem with that is you're getting answers that are old. If you're trying to get a spot like an actual new trend, the best way to go about it is to find a new conversation that's happening right now. So in Twitter, it has that little trends Twitter part. Reddit doesn't have the same thing. And the best way for you to get the most common problems that people have that maybe you can make a solution for or answer, whether you're making content, you're making products, to find the most up-to-date trend, if you will, Gummy search comes in. Because what you can then do is people will have a problem. Say, hey, I'm trying to use ChatGPT, but, there's a problem with, I don't know, like I'm not sure what prompt to give it. I'm not sure how to make it write an essay for me. You'll find that using Gummy search, you can actually, with the AI feature, you can actually get that summary, a summary of what currently is trending, and that can give you a good direction of what to find. Essentially, it could be that, recently people have been asking a lot of questions about, in my instance, like, let's say there's more shoulder pain than ever has been before. Like, well, that might prompt me to make some content about shoulder pain. For somebody who's a marketer, it might be the fact that, now Facebook or Meta is now making people pay for verification. Is there other ways to get that, customer support without having to pay for it? Those trends are not currently easily accessible. Like, sure, if you want to read a lot of news every day, you might find some trends. But if you find what common people that you would actually sell to would have, they usually go on Reddit for that. Sometimes they go there to fight, but a lot of times they go to ask questions. And if you want to get that question and get that trend summarized instead of having to read through so many articles, that's what you do.
Yeah, I like your pitch. I think that's a great sentiment, is that you're going to go find what people are currently talking about. You're going to go find the opinions of real people, and I think that's a really key distinction. When you go type something into ChatGPT, you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. A lot of the time, it sounds really smart. Sometimes it just lies to you, and that's how large language models work. It's predicting what kind of words to put down on the computer screen without you. It doesn't have as much care for is this true or not. And so I think that that's the kind of next level that I'm excited about, is not just providing an answer, but also providing the sources. And this is why this answer is being provided to you. And here's the 3 conversations that have real humans behind them that you can go ahead and read, dive into, maybe chat them, DM them. I think that can be quite a powerful idea.
I completely agree. Awesome. We're going to step back a little bit from the business. I'm going to come back to this, but I want to talk more about your nomad lifestyle. So tell us a bit about where you are at the moment and what you were doing in the past 2 years.
So I have actually recently ended my nomad lifestyle for now. I live in California and I love it as of the past couple months, but for the past 2 years, I was nomading around with my wife and my cat. Before going on this trip, I lived in New York for 8 years. And during COVID, New York became a pretty tough place to be, especially in the wintertime. You're just stuck in your tiny, shoebox apartment. And so after doing that for a year, my wife and I, we decided that we wanted to go see the United States. So we bought a car. We did a 9-month road trip across the states and, saw all of these cities and states that we'd never been to. And it was really interesting. We got married on the way. We saw some friends on the way, that became a little bit of a celebration for our marriage, as every single city we would stop by where we had friends, we would get to celebrate, that we were newly married. So that was pretty fun.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then after ending the road trip in California, we sold our car, and then we continued our travels by plane, and we would just stay somewhere for like 3 months at a time. So we went back to New York, we went to Mexico City, we went to Costa Rica, to Canada, and then ended up back in California. So now we're settled in Southern California. We have a lot of friends here, I have a lot of family here, so it's nice to be settled. But yeah, it was quite the experience, and I'm really, really grateful that we did it.
Awesome. If you had to live one place, not in California, where you've traveled, where would that be?
New York. If it were up to me, I would split my time between New York and California. In the States, there's a lot of places outside of America that I don't know as much about. I'm sure that they're interesting, wonderful places, but I haven't explored that as much yet. But if it were up to me, I would do the good months in New York and then every other month in California.
Why? Sell me New York.
Oh, New York, it has everything. Such diversity. You could have, novel experiences every single day, and the city just... It's just alive. It's true. It's true what they say. The city that never sleeps. I love it. I'm actually going back this weekend after not being back there for 6 months, and I'm super excited about it.
Sounds good. That sounds awesome. And tell me about your routine. So like as a nomad and maybe now, how would that change? So like the main things is physical, mental health changed based on like your habits that you do, right? Like if you're somebody who's always traveling, there's certain things that you cannot do as much or as frequently, like you can't join a usual tennis club, if you will. Mm-hmm. But then again, pardon me, if you are somewhere there, like you're located, then you have like those habits. You can say, well, I'm part of this local tennis club, but also there's a routine that never changes. So what is it like playing on both parts, being a nomad where your daily habits might be out of whack, if you will, versus being anchored in a place?
Yeah, so it's very important. And it's important, I think, for everyone to figure out whether they're nomads or not, like what is the daily routine? What is it that you personally need? I know what I need. I need good, healthy food. I need to exercise every single day. And I need to see the sunlight. And that last one's part of why we left New York City in the winter time anyways, right? And yeah, I know that about myself. And I think that like by now, my diet is pretty consistent no matter where we travel. A big part of that is my wife. I mean, she basically taught me what vegetables are, and I'm very grateful for that. But the thing that I need to stay on top of is my exercise, because I recognize what a different person I am when I'm not exercising it. And so I just make sure that that's a priority. I work out every single day, most days for like 2 or 3 hours. And even on the road trip, I would work out. In the middle of the day, I would usually just go find the closest park that had a pull-up bar. I would do my calisthenic exercises, and it was a wonderful way to take a break from working, from sitting at the laptop, go see some sun, go move around. And yeah, it truly makes me happy, and I'm glad that it's something that I've been able to prioritize. Part of that is due to the flexible schedule that I get from the work that I do.
That sounds awesome. Have you picked up like new habits or new sports since you've been back?
Yeah. So since I moved to Southern California, now I go to a martial arts gym 3 times a week. So I do Muay Thai and Jiu-Jitsu, which is awesome, especially, at the end of a day, there's nothing that will like put a smile on your face and like clear any kind of like work anxiety away as like going to a gym and, getting beat up a little bit. And yeah, so I do that a couple times a week. I play volleyball twice a week, and I still do my calisthenics. And the scene here is much better. If you go to the Santa Monica Olympic Park, there are hundreds, on a Sunday, like thousands of people just doing some of the most amazing acrobatics that you've ever seen. And it's just cool to be out there on the beach working out with them.
Awesome. And in terms of like communities, are there like communities back there where you can say, about this is a founders community or startup communities that I can attend to or talk to people, or is it mostly online at the moment?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I definitely, have my fair share of online communities, especially for founders. I have been keeping a directory that I've mostly curated myself of over 1,000 of them. And in that process, I've joined a lot of online communities. I've really gotten to know, what a lot of them are like. But I do think that in-person community is really important. I would say that most of the in-person communities that I have are centered around my in-person interests. like doing all these sports. So I haven't had as many, in-person founder, meetups and whatnot, but I know it's out there. And I do have certain friends that are kind of startup inclined that it's always fun to jam with. But to be honest, if I don't find like a really good in-person startup community here, it's not going to be the end of the world, because I have thousands of startup friends online, maybe more than enough communities to be a part of.
Thehiveindex.com.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have a question. It's like, if you weren't doing your SaaS, what else would you see yourself doing? Like, have you ever thought, like, I know as like an entrepreneur, you always think about like, there's always big ideas in your head, right? It could be software, it could be not software related. Is there something that you think like, you know what, once I finish a lot of this stuff, I want to do this?
I mean, I have like 3 other SaaS products rattling around in the back of my head. Sometimes I think about them before I go to sleep. So I'm ready. If something were to ever happen to my SaaS and I had to shut down shop tomorrow, I will be fine. Software is so accessible to make. It's all you need is your laptop. And
so it'll be software based. So like, I guess my question was like, let's say, for example, you sold it or you got acquired, or is there something you see yourself doing aside from that? Maybe I should have reframed it that way.
Yeah, I do have a bit of a master plan, and I do think that with the direction that I'm going with my Bootstrap SaaS, the goal is to learn, to build something, to make something that can financially sustain myself, my family. But I think that, if I do achieve the levels of success that I do strive for there, I do anticipate, wanting to pick up bigger problems. Right now, I'm making tools for marketers. And you could say that, I'm making their lives a little bit better and saving them some time. And that's great. But I wouldn't quite say that's like the most powerful mission that I could have picked. There are much, much bigger problems out there in the world that, I think that after having this experience that I would be willing and able to take off, to, bite a little chunk out of. And that's why I say, like, I'm not closed off to the idea of going down the venture-backed route. I think that there are certain ideas and there are certain problems in the world that you can only really reasonably attempt at if you do have a team, if you do have the financial backing. So I do see those kinds of opportunities in the future.
Awesome. Well, I think you can do it. I believe in you. I've used your product and I can vouch for it.
Thank you.
I have like one last question, but also then if you want to have any questions for me, you can. How do you balance working on your startup or software in general versus family and productivity time and self-time? Do you have a certain like routine that you follow that says, like, for some people, it's like, okay, I'm working from 8 till 2 and after that, I'm not touching it. But for some people, say as long as I do those certain hours, I'm happy. What have you tried and what currently are you doing?
Yeah, when I prioritize my work, I also like to prioritize the things that I want to achieve in my personal life. And so literally I have like a meeting with myself once a month where I, set my goals for Gummy Search. I set my goals for the Hive Index, and then I set my goals for life. And that involves, my family, and that involves my health. And I do that goal planning at the same time because for me, they are of equal importance. And when I do reflect back on last month's goals and how I did, I look at the whole picture. So I think that's like an important thing for me is, you can't just over-index on one area of your life, and especially not work, because work is, it is important, but I think what's more important is the relationships you have with people, your health, your family, the kind of person that you are to others around you. So I think that just like keeping that top of mind is you're a multifaceted human, you have all these different categories of things that you're interested in, and I think it's reasonable to pursue all of them. And I know that there's different schools of thought on this. I've always kind of been a multitasker. I've always been someone that doesn't mind working on multiple things at the same time, and I treat my work and personal life in the same manner.
That's awesome. Thank you for being open about it. You also like even do on Twitter, like you do a lot of build in public kind of like posts about, it's more like insights, if you will, about like, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm currently doing, and like, this is what I've learned. Have you found that helpful? Have you like mainly from people that you follow and maybe you posting about it and maybe somebody says, hey, I've tried this, have you tried that, and so on?
I think that's one of the most wonderful things about the Build in Public community on Twitter is that everyone's learning from themselves. And I think that's really the way that you are able to succeed as a one-man startup. It is a crazy job to be doing product engineering, marketing, or some design. It's crazy to be doing all of those things all at once. And I think the only way that you can reasonably do it is if you can leverage the knowledge that you get from others. And so that's, I think, in that way, the world of indie hackers, if there was like an ETF for indie hackers, like I would invest right now because I can see such promising futures and everyone that is a part of that circle. People are learning from one another in order to accelerate their own businesses. People are starting multiple businesses, taking the experience from their past projects or past businesses and applying it to get a head start on the next one. And that's the way that you get people like Peter Levels that has over the last 10 years launched like over 50 different products and been really successful with a lot of them. So I have learned a lot from the indie hacker community and I want to give back. And I think that's the way that I'm comfortable giving back. And that's the way that I feel like I'm authentic to myself is, posting certain things on Twitter around the experiments that I've run, the kinds of things that I've learned and what's worked for me. And hopefully that is helpful to some other people following along.
That's awesome. Do you have any questions you want to ask at all? Is there anything in your mind that you want to share or pitch for anybody who's listening to the podcast?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be a shame if I didn't pitch my product, but if you are reading or if you're listening and you are either looking to come up with a business idea, you're looking to validate it, you're looking to find some customers, I would definitely recommend leveraging the power of online communities because online communities can be an incredible force in your startup at every single stage. And if you can tap into online communities, you can tap into the voice of your customer. That's going to be really, really powerful. So Gummy Search helps you do that. It's free to start. And you can, within the first 5 minutes, find online communities full of your target customers, figure out what they're talking about. And yeah, I encourage you to give it a shot. And then I guess if you aren't quite, pursuing a particular product or a startup, I would encourage people to go ahead and maybe give it a shot and to know that you don't need to go all in down this route. You don't need to go ahead and make this huge life change. You can just, start a little side hustle, take an hour every single morning before you go to your full-time job or afterwards and just experiment with something. Go ahead, put up a landing page. There's all these amazing no-code tools that you can use. You don't need to know how to program. There's all these amazing AI tools that you could use to come up with AI products. Really, there's no better time to start a company. And I think that if you haven't tried it yet, then I think you'd be surprised as to how fun and how accessible it is.
That's awesome. We'll wrap it up. Thank you so much for coming on board today, and we'll hopefully get to see you in another episode as well as you tell us more about what you've done and everything about that. But yeah, well, thank you very much, and I'll leave links to Fed, so details for him, for Twitter, for the 2 products that he has, and I really do hope that you check it out. It's a really great product. I use it myself, and hopefully you can too. All right.
Thanks, Osama. Yeah, it was my pleasure. Appreciate it.
I'll see you all in the next one. See ya.
So why do you want it?
It's good goddamn business. And if I don't buy it, someone else will, and that will be very, very bad for my business. When it comes to business, my judgment is never clouded.